All right. Well, I'm excited. Um, Susie, I don't know if you want to kick off anything or you want me to just take it away. I'm good either way.
You can just take it away, but I do just want to say that I have been watching you on Facebook and watching you with your clients and all that you do. And I'm just really excited about this because I think you're going to bring a lot of value to us.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I love teaching this workshop because I really believe that if you're in real estate, you should be focusing on listings. But I also feel like you should be having fun in this business. And that is sometimes hard right now with multiple offers and letting buyers know that they didn't get the house. That freaking sucks. Let's just keep it real, right? So today is about changing that, turning the corner and really focusing on listings. So it's going to be a 2-hour workshop today. We are going to give you a self-study, nothing really hard, but a little bit of homework that you'll be doing tonight. And then we're going to finish up tomorrow 1 to 3 as well. Everything is going to be recorded. Everything is going to be sent to your office as far as the PowerPoint presentations, the recordings, everything you'll have at your fingertips. But I really believe in writing and taking notes. What you'll see in the presentation on the slides and in the workbook, sometimes I say things that aren't written down. So I do that on purpose, but sometimes I get excited, I get passionate about the topic, and I'm going to talk about sometimes things that are not on the slides or not on the workbook. So the first thing, I want to make sure everybody has the workbook. Does everybody have the workbook? Absolutely unmute yourself if you feel like you don't have it. It's 62 pages, so if you want to print it, go for it. I have mine in a book like this, and I just did it in black and white, and I take notes continuously on that. And I'm going to monitor the chat box there to make sure we're good. Yes. Oh, all right. Sherry does not. So let me re-download in the chat the workbook itself. So let me just real quick re-download the file. So if you're in the chat, you can just download it from the direct chat link. Here it is. So Sherry, let me make sure if you don't get it, let me know. We'll kind of rock and roll as we go forward, okay? All right, well, let's just get this party started. Let's kind of kick off the beginning. The first is I want to get to know you guys. I actually know about NextHome. One of my one of my good friends, Wanda Ott, has a franchise in the Lynchburg, Virginia market. And I am super impressed with NextHome, with their technology, their training. And Susan and I had a conversation of how can we bring more value, because you already get a lot of value from the brokerage itself. And we thought, hey, let's mix it up and let's give you guys a boot camp. So I do want to get a little pulse on experience. So if you guys can unmute yourself, and I know it's tricky because we talk over each other, but I want to get a little bit of experience, and you just shout out how many years you've been in the business. So 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, 20 years, 5 minutes. Like, that's all good, but I want to hear what type of experience level, because I want to value out from you and also you to me. So who wants to kick it off? How long have you guys been in real estate? I'm going to write some of these numbers down.
3 years.
3 years. I heard that a couple times. Good.
8 years. 2 months.
2 months.
10
Aren't
months.
you lucky 2 months into getting all this knowledge? What else? 8 years, 2 months, 3 years.
5 years.
5 years. Good. Anybody?
2 months again.
10? Anybody in the business 10 years?
16 and a half.
16. Pam, you're my girl. 16 and a half, right? So you've seen definitely shifts in sellers and buyer market. So I'm going to rely on all of you, Pam, especially you, of just chiming in whenever you see a moment. If I'm kind of on a little conversation, that's okay. Cut me off. I want you to contribute to this conversation. This is not a webinar. This is a workshop. Workshops are about communicating and collaborating as a group of people. So don't let me do all the heavy lifting. Make sure you guys are participating as much as possible, all right? That's awesome. So we got a lot of years of experience here. Well, first of all, who am I, right? And how do you even say my last name is probably the biggest thing. My last name is Demery. It is French, but I'm from Indiana, so I have no idea how the hell I have a French last name. But my name, you can just call me Drew. I'm a husband, a father, a real estate agent for just going into my 16th year, trainer and coach for the last 7 years. And so one of the things, my wife, I found the love of my life in college, and we moved to Lynchburg, Virginia. And I honestly did not even know where Lynchburg, Virginia was. Probably should have asked more questions, because when I moved there, I could see both ends of the mall. And I was like, where the hell have I moved? It was a great opportunity to build also a good opportunity to build a brokerage. So within the first 3 years of me becoming a real estate agent, I opened an independent brokerage company, had 43 agents that had the privilege of working with. And then we actually ended up selling that to a franchise. And then I moved to Richmond almost 9 years now. But the biggest thing I want you to realize is that very early on in my business, a mentor told me that the seller's business is the name of the game in this business. And so it was my mission, and it was my, I just really focused on that. 70% of my business came from seller business. Now that didn't happen overnight, but there was a lot of strategic, intentional marketing, strategic, intentional connections with my community to make sure that I was leading with listings. So some of you may be 2 months in, 8 years in, or 16 and a half years in. If you're not at that at least 50-50 ratio of sellers to buyers, I would challenge you to really take notes, really dive in, because your life literally changes when you're focusing on listings. It gives you so many more opportunities, whether it's you flipping properties, you buying investment and rental properties, you having more time with your friends and your family without going crazy with all these buyers out there, right? And yes, today, right now, we're in a crazy market, but the market shifts every 7 to 10 years, and we're on track to need a shift in the market, right? And many of us want there to be an adjustment. But if you always focus on sellers, regardless of the market, you're going to have substantial growth financially and opportunity of other income streams. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox on that, but I wanted to give you a little background of who I am. But these are my girls. These are my life. This is my big why. My daughter Emma in the middle, she is just about to turn 16 in July. And my wife, Kimberly, on the right, she is a buyer's agent on a team. She's on one of the top teams in the Richmond market. And she frankly works her ass off. And there's an interesting dynamic in our relationship because I'm not a big fan of buyers and she's a buyer's agent. So we kind of have this tug of war conversation. But so I see the perspective of both sides. But the love of my life, honestly, is my dog Levi. He's my man. He's actually underneath my feet. The gift of COVID is we can all hang out together. And I'm that dorky kid from Indiana, right? That's the last time I actually held a bat because I don't even know why sports are a thing. But those of you that are sports players, good for you. But the biggest thing is that we got to realize that your time is money. Your time is an opportunity to, like I said, build abundance for your family, your bank account, or spend time with those that you love. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the fact that we can spend 4 hours together throughout the course of this training and really collaborate together. So enough about me, but I wanted you to know who the heck I am and give you a little background. So I'm going to open it up just for a few minutes. What do you want to get out of this session, right? You guys are all top producing agents, so you obviously could be doing something else other than hanging out with me. But what are some strategic things that you want to get out? I'm going to write all of those down. And if I don't hit it through the topics the next 2 days, I'll make sure at the end of day 2 that we cover it. So shout out. Again, we may overlap, but that's all good. What do you want to get out of a listing boot camp that you're deciding to spend 4 hours out of your productive day to do so?
A listing.
Want to take a listing, all right?
More listings.
More listings, all right?
Strategy and knowledge.
Knowledge.
Learn more about how to get the people. Get the
So, so actually how to get more leads, right?
Most productive ways to attract listers.
Right, most productive, which is saving time and money, right? All right, what else? I see a lot of it in the chat box. Let me grab all that. That's good. I love to walk away with some tangible changes to make in my listing and marketing plan. Yes, I got that. Got you covered, so we're good. We're gonna definitely go over some of that. Anything else that you're gonna stump me? I think I'm gonna get through all that in the next 2 days. So good stuff. So this is what we call a do workshop. It's not a lean back Zoom training. So you're already gonna see that I like to have participation. I would love it if you have your cameras on. I don't care if your hair's done, your makeup's done, if you're in your pajamas, I don't care. But what I like to do is anytime you have a question, you just chat with me. You can see I'm pretty informal. And so I like to have fun and interact with people. So this is not just put me on the back burner and wash the dishes and do the laundry. I want you to really pay attention. You know you've done that. I've done that. And then make sure you're interacting with the workbook. Take notes, screenshots. I would love for somebody in the midst of this to take a screenshot of all of us so we can use it for social media posting. So get your phones out anytime you can. I'm going to be referencing a ton of books. So I've got a big chunk of books that I'm going to resource and reference. At the end of your workbook, at the very last page, is the reference of all of those books. And I'm all up for reading more books. So if you guys have any other books that kind of are in connection with the topic that we're discussing, please shout out the books because I'm always looking to grow and learn. But the biggest thing is make sure you have me in your phone. I am your coach and your trainer for 2 days, right? And so you can text me all day today, all night, within reason, all day tomorrow. So you'll see on the screen my cell phone number and my email address. I got you. You're my client and we're helping you through this. And so one of the things before we go kind of this next step forward is our company is called the Freedom Companies. And the reason why we choose the word freedom is that we really think real estate, we believe that real estate allows you the freedom and the flexibility to live a life by design. But some of us are stuck in this unfortunate situation where we can't really get out of the time crunch of buyers right now, right? So that's why our passion is to really focus on sellers. All right, well, let's kind of dive into it. The first thing is that if you do follow me on social media, I'm a big mindset guy. I believe before you can do any skill, you have to have the mindset that you can do it. So from a classic book, Think and Grow Rich, if you see the icons throughout the PowerPoint, it kind of gives you an indication of the books I'm chatting about. They talk about be, do, have, right? And so one of the things before we're going to teach you what to do and how to do it, we need to think about why would you want to focus on listings? Why would you be wanting to be the listing expert? So in Think and Grow Rich, it says become a listing expert, do the activities of a listing expert, have abundance of listings. But I want you to add another one right under have. If you're going to use your workbook or put it in your notebook, I want you to actually add the word give. Give back to the community, because if you truly are doing the be, do, have, you're going to have the ability to give back to your family, give back to your charity, give back to your church or your community. And ultimately, that's what gives the fire under your belly to keep going. Because right now, we know listings are not the easiest to obtain. But when you're focusing on that be, do, have, give, you kind of have that fire in your gut, right? So we're going to talk about how a listing expert acts, what they know, how they market themselves, right? How do they find leads, and then what skills do they have in order to attract those, and how to keep that listing momentum going, right? That's the tricky thing about real estate is you have 3 listings, you have 0 listings. You got 6 listings, you have 2 listings, right? That we call that the real estate roller coaster. And how do we maintain a listing-based real estate business in any climate? Seasonally or seller market, buyer market, COVID or no COVID, how do we maintain and then create momentum? That's what all of what we're going to focus on. And I want us to get in the right mindset around that, because without that, let's just be frank, it'll be another training that you go to, another to-do list that you have, and you don't do it, right? You'll just move on to the next thing. So we really got to have that buy-in from a mindset standpoint. So the first thing I want you to realize is that you are the economist of choice, right? I think financial planners get all the credit, but we build the most wealth of any industry. We build personal wealth. It is proven that wealthy people own real estate and create abundance. We employ hundreds of people industry-wise, movers, handyman, painters, general contractors, right? Restaurants. We are the catalyst that really controls the economy, right? And so one of the first things we got to realize is that if you're the local economist of the choice, you actually have to know your numbers at the local level. So one of the things, if you're following in your book, is that we've got to make sure, if you're in the fill in the blank section on page 2, that sellers hire local experts. For you to attract sellers, you actually have to keep your skills sharp. And so those of you on the call that are 10 plus years, I'm sure you're keeping your skills sharp. Those of you that are 2 months in, I'm sure you're building your skills right now, but it consistently has to keep going because the market's changing every week. So we're going to look at where this data comes from and what you need to be disciplined about. Experts also know that market data. Do you know how many listings sold last month? Do you know the average sales price? Do you know that information so consistently and embedded that you can just off the cuff say it? Well, one of the things that I find is that a lot of our leads come from random conversations, right? You're at the grocery store or you're having a discussion with someone at a local restaurant. And so what do they typically say? They're like, hey, I'm a real estate agent. What does the consumer say to you? What do they say? Pam, I can hear you, but I can't hear you. What's your mute? Unmute. I can read your lips. I got you. Or go ahead.
What's the market doing? What's the market
What's the
like?
market doing, right? How is the real estate market, right? That's the typical question that we get. Unfortunately, what the typical answer is that we say, oh, the market's good, or the market's really strong, right? But what if we led with some data? What if we led with some real knowledge? It says, you know what, actually the market's very strong. Actually in the first quarter, we were up 9.6% on volume, on actually closed volume. And they're like, really? I said, almost 10% up. And also the crazy thing is, in the last 2 years, the average increase in value of a house is up almost up 10%, right? What does that mean differently than, oh, the market's busy, right? Because when we say the market's busy, that could mean maybe you're too busy for their lead. It could be you're too busy to handle the volume or the buyers or sellers that you have now. So just be careful with that. So lead with market data. The other thing inside of looking at data and being the economist of choice is you know where the puck, with a P, the puck is going, right? We know where it's going. So we at the Freedom Companies do a market of the moment every month, and we review CBR MLS data, and we see up trends and down trends, right? No, 1 month is never a trend. So if we had a great month last month, that doesn't mean the whole market's up, right? Certain MLS area numbers are down, some are up, some are down, knowing that those pockets, right? So predicting where the puck is going. Those that are listing experts know where the puck is going, and that's where they start to market their skills and expertise. Also, experts continue to connect people through value, right? I don't coach to a belief that we are salespeople, we are consultants, right? And so our job is to connect people. We are in the human business, not the housing business. And I'll say that numerous times. We're in the human business, not the housing business. And Pam, I know you're shaking your head. Many of you are as well, because you understand that, honestly, the transactional part is not what connects us. And also, it's also not what gives us future seller referrals. It's the relationship. So we're going to talk about that. To work their skills on their skills every day. I believe that we have some amazing technology, podcasts. We've got closed Facebook groups. We got a lot of knowledge in front of us. One of the things I would say is that make sure you're not absorbing so much information and not implementing. What I tend to sometimes coach people to is they watch this podcast or listen to the podcast or watch this YouTube video and they watch 5 or 6 of them, but they don't implement anything, right? Skills have to be executed. And so we're going to talk about some of those skills today. All right. So I wanted to end with this last thing of grit. Have you guys ever read this book? It's such a good book. Angela Duckworth talks about how we really have to kind of push through the pain. And so I wanted to read this one simple thing. I'm not going to read a lot to you in the next couple of days, but it talks about talent versus effort equals skill versus skill plus times effort equals achievement. And so what I see is sometimes we have really educated real estate agents that take every single class at RAR at their brokerage, but they don't implement anything. And in my opinion, they're an educated, unemployed realtor. An educated, unemployed realtor, right? So what I'd like for you to do today and tomorrow is choose one thing that you're going to implement in today's session and one thing that you're going to implement tomorrow in tomorrow's session that is actually going to give you the ability to execute within 24 hours. Okay? Okay. Oh, real quick. Sorry about that. I had intruders in my office, AKA dogs. All right, so let's kind of keep going. So the first thing is how to become the local economist of choice. I want you guys to focus on these key metrics. I recommend screenshotting this. It's also in your workbook on page 3. And when you see on page 3, this is what we consider a self-study, meaning I want you to fill in the blank this afternoon and text me a photo of this. So everybody write down my cell phone number, 804-937-0773. 804-937-0773. These are key numbers that I want you to start to identify every single month. I'm going to show you where to get this data. It's literally, the CDR MLS makes it so simple. It's literally 2 clicks. Super, super easy to get. And I want you to realize that these key data points, if you keep reading these and looking at these month after month, you'll start to see your own trends. You'll start to see your own local economists' opinions, right? Real estate agents, we all have an opinion, right? And so average sales price, average days on market, and so on and so forth. So for self-study, what I'd like for you guys to do is just jot these numbers down and then text me once you did find this data. So this is where we find it. So when you go into your dashboard, you're gonna see market stats. It's I have circled in yellow right there. Super simple. You're literally gonna click on it and it's gonna pop this second window open. I'll tell you, I modify this screen literally slightly. When you open the screen up, it has these weird wiggly lines, like the stock market. I don't really do well with that visually, so I change it to a bar graph. So if you're looking kind of on this, you probably don't know if you can see my cursor here, but there's just literally a change of a bar graph. I also changed it to 2 years. I want to compare 2020 versus 2021. So the only 2 things that I change it's literally click on market stats, pop this baby open, go bar graph, and do 2 years. When I did last month, I could actually do the whole quarter, right? Because we could do year to date, so I could see what first quarter did. If you realize that this is about a month behind, so right now we're in May, So April's is up right now, right? And it takes about the 10th of the month before CBR MLS kind of gets everything buttoned up. So check in the kind of the first week of the month. But the key thing is you're also going to see resale versus new construction. I don't know if you're seeing, but a lot of new construction sales are happening. Are you guys seeing a lot of that? We've seen a huge difference in the sales prices and the sales volume and units in resale versus new construction. So we're seeing the puck moving. We're seeing that resale is actually not as affordable as you think. New construction's right in alignment. So I always say, would you rather buy a new car or a used car for almost the same money? That's what's shifting. And then obviously they're able to build inventory versus resale or not. So the first thing I want you to realize is that a local economist of choice, these are something that you need to be aware of. I would challenge your brokerage, or if you have small mentor groups, look at this stuff together. A lot of the brokerages that I coach and train with have now made this a monthly conversation where they just quickly, and either their team meetings, sales meetings, or a market of the moment like mini Zoom, and have a discussion, a mastermind around this data, because there's a lot of experience and knowledge in this room today, and especially in the NEXTHOME family as a whole, and comparing and contrasting, and your local market is going to put you in a competitive advantage. Because let's be honest, when you're listing homes, it's an interview versus a buyer agent. We're showing houses, but are we educating them on the market at a high level? Maybe we are near the transaction part where we're writing an offer, but a listing seller wants to see that you know the local market like the back of your hand. So again, it's that practice and repetition. So can I pause? Do you guys go over any of the market data as a brokerage or small groups? Have you guys put that in place? Is that something you're doing now? No? Yes? No.
Something that I encourage at different times, I pointed them toward, Pam's laughing because I'm nicely saying, I've told them this is important, but now that you're telling him, maybe.
Well, that may be leading to the reason why you may not be having the abundance of listings that you desire, right? It also just breeds confidence. 2 months in, 6 years in, 15 years in, whatever it is, we all go through those ups and downs of that mindset of we can do this or should we just retire. I've wanted to quit and get a real job 20 times in this business, right? But I think knowing this data, not only number one, it's good information, but it really builds your confidence. So I love that Susie is encouraging you. If I were to coach you, I would say it's non-negotiable. You're independent contractors, but you need to be able to price houses and know the local market. That's your job. So I'll stop preaching there, but I would challenge you guys to dive in and make it fun. Just look at things and look at different perspectives each month, possibly. All right, so you're going to work on that, and we're going to become the local expert. All right, let's talk about why the heck everybody tells us that we need to focus on listings first. You may or may not have ever read this book. It's called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And this book is, I think, 11 or 12 years old now, and it's all tethered, and I've got it marked up and crossed up. This book literally is real estate agents throughout the United States. They interviewed the top $1 million real estate agents, and they said, what are you doing in your business? And so what they did is they took all that research and data and wrote this book. Every single one of them, and they're from all brokerages across the United States, so it's not one real estate brand saying this, is they all said that they all have these three things in common. So I want you to kind of look at this diagram on page 4 of your workbook, and the base of the triangle says leads. Without leads, you got no business, right? So that's the base of any business in real estate. Right? Then on the left is listings. Those that have what we call market share, meaning AKA for sale signs in the yard, are in control of the market. Those that do not have for sale signs at this point in the market, you're an Uber driver. And that's not fun because you have to pay for for your own gas, even in a gas crisis, right? And then on the right side is leverage. And what do they mean by leverage? So I want you to write on the margins of this workbook. The first leverage is systems. If you're an independent solo agent and you're like, I can't hire an assistant, I can't pay people to do anything right now, my business isn't at that level. The first thing is, how do you develop listing systems that it makes it easier for you to obtain listings and have a good quality of customer service within the whole listing experience for your clients, right? And I'm telling you, when I coach some of my people, it's old school, it's files, it's Post-it notes, it's whatever system that you actually use. Now, I would love for you to use a database, because the next leverage piece is technology. So once you get systems in place, so let's say organizing your office, getting your files set up, just getting some systematic emails or template checklists set up, right? Once you get those systems set up for leverage, the second is technology, right? We're in a pretty cool space in real estate. The last 5 to 6 years, there's some amazing technological advancements in real estate, meaning we can show homes through an app called Showing Time. We can automate emails. We can automate social media posts. We can even purchase software for automated text message and automatic voicemails, which we'll talk about a little bit. So the second leverage piece is going to be tech. So once you have systems in place and technology in place, then you make the choice of hiring people. So inside this, on the leverage side, it's systems, technology, then people, right? And I don't care what size of your business. It's interesting, I coach 7 of the pretty large teams in the Richmond market. They have, a lot of them I've noticed, to have people, but they don't have the systems or the technology set up. So it's like building the house upside down. They forgot the foundation and they started with the roof, right? So it's okay, but we've got to realize that the listings, the leads, listings, and leverage is what we call the 3 L's of real estate. And if you do have this book, it's on page 40 to 43. But you don't need to read it because I just told you essentially what it said, right? Properly leveraged, an agent can have quality service of 5 active buyers versus 27 active listings. 27 to 5. So why do you think you can manage 27 listings on the same time and skill and quality level as 5 buyers? I'm going to shut up, and I want to hear your input and your thoughts on why that differential is so drastic.
No pre-approval.
Yeah, so pre-approval, so that process gets a little bit shorter as far as the sales funnel cycle. Okay, what else?
Looking for listings.
Right. So what do you mean by that? Expand on that. What do you think? I love where you're going.
Like doing that search, looking at different homes for their price point, finding what they like, what they don't like.
On the buyer side?
Driving around.
Driving around, sleuthing out, trying to find the photos, which make every listing look great. And then when you get there, it smells like a dog or a cat and looks like it hadn't been painted in 20 years, right? We pay a lot of money for those photos. I get it, but they're very deceiving, right? Yeah, so it's just time. A lot of it's the physical time. The other thing that we'll talk about a little bit is that you're not physically at the house with the listing a lot of times, right? You're not showing the property. You're not at the home inspection, right? So we can do things automated by email and by text messages, right? So we can, I hate to say it, but listing specialists can take more vacations. They can relax a little more on the beach. Now, is it easy? No, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say listing agents can drink a Mai Tai every day and be on the beach. But if we're leveraging our time through systems, technology, and people, we can get there where we kind of have a good counterbalance to that. Okay. All right.
Drew,
Yes, absolutely.
I was going to say that listings don't suck the life out of you
Amen.
in general.
Yeah. Unless you have the crazy seller. Or I had one we're working with now with a client, they're divorced. It's a hot mess of crazy, but I get it. Yeah, ultimately listings have just a different opportunity. I also will tell you that they're more likely to do repeat business with you. What we see time over time is that they sell their house, they buy another house, whether upsize or downsize, and they refer you other clients, whether it's their sister, brother, aunt, son. It's interesting, they just look at it differently rather than referral for a buyer's agent. So I wish that wasn't so, but that's just historically how our industry has built that reputation.
Well, and in this market, you will, your listings will move more quickly, more than likely, and your buyers, you know, you're out with them constantly fighting over the same house that 100 other folks are fighting over. So
Absolutely.
it's a lot less time consuming in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just want to set the tone because that's something that's important to go into. So seller lead sources. So people go, hey, you know, you've coached hundreds of agents over the years. I think we're up now almost 680 people I've coached. And like, how do you get them to get more listing leads? So we're going to just dive into just the snapshot of a few of them. I will tell you, I teach each one of these classes separately. They're 1-hour classes. There's 8 of them because we dive really deep into seller leads because it's not just send a postcard and you're going to get a listing. There's a whole nurture process to it. There's a sequential and strategic plan. But the first one I'll tell you that we spend, obviously, you know this, is the #1 lead source for seller leads. 48% should be. If you're not at 48%, then you're not consistent enough with your sphere of influence. But that's a whole nother soapbox. But sphere of influence should equate for 48% of your seller leads. What I tend to see is we don't even track where our leads come from, which is crazy to me, right? So the first thing is, as you're selling properties, every month you should say, where did this lead come from? And if you don't know the answer, you need to ask your client that. Don't guess, right? You do a lot of marketing, you do a lot of prospecting, advertising, and you know, get a phone call. It's okay to pause and say, hey, I'm super excited to be a resource for you in the coming months on the listing. But again, remind me where you got my contact information, who shared this experience. And I think sometimes we're shy with that, but if you're a business owner, you're tracking those lead sources. Because if I'm spending $100 a month on Facebook ads and it's not giving me seller leads, stop spending the $100, right? Spend it on something else. That's a first thing. Social media seller-focused target marketing. This is crept up in the last 6 years. So those of you that say social media doesn't work, that's not true. There's a lot of leads, quality leads coming from social media. What I see though, and what I coach to, is that we're putting too much buyer-heavy content out there. I got a buyer under contract in 3 days, you know, with multiple offers, or I'm the listing agent, we sold it in 3 days. It's a challenge to say that if you're a listing agent, you say this house went under contract in 3 days. Do they think it was your skill that sold that in 3 days, or do they think the market is what sold that in 3 days? Again, we're a skill-based listing agent. So the challenge with that is, as excited as we are to tell them that you got a house under contract, how can we reframe that to be able to say that it sold in 3 days? Without going too much into the workshop, it's about telling a story. So what I would recommend is showing that beautiful photo of that listing, right? And then say, hey, my sellers have worked so hard on getting this house ready for the market. They did all of the items that I recommended for the condition to update the kitchen. They did everything to declutter. They did everything my stager asked them to do. And with their effort, as well as my expertise in getting that house show ready, it went under contract in 3 days, right? It's showing them value, not just the market sold it in 3 days, because we do a lot of work. I mean, sometimes we're mulching and we're mopping floors and vacuuming ourselves. Been there, done that, right? I didn't know I was in the housekeeping business until I got into real estate, right? But make sure you're telling the story behind that. And don't, I see so much social media that's putting a nail in our own coffin when it comes to not focusing on listing leads on social media. The next one is open houses, but seller focused. We don't need any more buyers. Can I get an amen? We don't need any more buyers, right? So when you're doing an open house, I don't honestly care that the buyers are coming through the house. What I want to do is canvass the neighborhood. What I want to do is talk to the neighbors and let them know that the house is for sale. So a simple conversation, whether it's face-to-face through door knocking, a conversation on the phone, is, hey, I'm hosting an open house at 123 Smith Street, just down the street from your house. And then I'm doing a seller preview 30 minutes before the general public. So at 1:30 to 2 is your time as the neighbors. And what I'd love for you to do is come by my open house and give me feedback. Tell me what you think about the inside. Tell me what you think about the outside. Tell me if you think the price is right, because I really need that feedback so I can really help my seller do the best they can to get it sold, right? That preview, 1:30 to 2, is just for them. And you're going to get there, if you're doing a 2 to 4 open house, you're probably getting there at 1:30 anyway, turning the lights on, putting balloons out. But what are we doing to attract seller listings, right? What are we doing there, right? So we really focus on how to get that. So think about strategically doing open houses for sellers. Circle prospecting. Does everybody know what that means? Sometimes that terminology throws people off. Anybody want to explain what circle prospecting is to everybody? All right, I'll do it. No worries. All right, so it's a property that you have right now, whether it's a buyer that's under contract or a listing that you currently have, right? And I'm going to show you. We use a software called Mojo, M-O-J-O, and it pulls in a circular pattern around that subject property people's names, their phone numbers, and their email addresses. So we use a software, and it's $50 a month, not expensive, month to month, not crazy subscription fees, and we pull from circle prospecting. So every house I get under contract, I pull that listing up, right? And then I call the neighbors and say, hey, I was a buyer agent that represented 123 Smith Street in your neighborhood. We got it under contract, but I have other buyers that are dying to get in your neighborhood. Do you know anybody in your neighborhood that's possibly wanting to list their house soon, right? If I'm a seller, a listing agent, I do the same thing. Hey, we got a house under contract in 3 days. Can't disclose the price, but it was way above asking. And so if you want to take advantage of the hot market right now, I'm trying to find neighbors in your community that want to list their property, right? Those are conversations that I can have on a consistent basis to get seller-based leads. Circle prospecting is the easiest thing to do. Past clients, we see that right now, 3 to 5 years, the number is they move 7 to 10. We're seeing trends that people are moving faster right now. Why do you think they're moving out of their houses faster than the national average right now? Just in the last year. Why do you think they're moving a little faster? This guess would be good. Anybody?
Working from home and realizing they need more space or different space?
Absolutely. Top 2 reasons is they don't like the space they're living in now that they're looking at it all day. And the second is they do see the value of the money. They see across the street, our house went for $50,000 more than they thought possible. And they're like, I'll cash in and make an extra 50 grand, right? I'll rent for a year if I have to, but I'm going to cash in and make a profit on my house. So we're seeing people moving much more frequently than the trends have been. And I don't know if that'll trend will continue, but if you're in 2021 and needing seller leads, I would go through the tax record, realist tax, pull up the neighborhood. There was a column that said sales date. That's literally free information. You guys can go on realist tax record. Let's say it's Brookstone neighborhood. Pull every house in Brookstone. There's a column that you can add that exports in that says sales date. If there's anybody that's 3 to 5 years, I would either call them or mail them a letter that says, I know you purchased your home in 2018, yet right now, because prices are increasing 9% every year, you could cash in very quickly and make a profit even by owning your house for 3 to 4 years, right? We have free data. They're literally on the tax record tells you when they bought their house. So pulling that data, using it as a resource, and then also past clients. Anybody who coaches with me, I want to make sure that the home anniversary is a big deal. We go through every month and say, how many houses did you close last year in May? They tell me. Great. So where's the home anniversary gift? Are you dropping something off at their door? A $10 bottle of wine goes a long way that says happy second anniversary of your home, happy third anniversary of your home. And those that are 2 months, 3 months in the business, setting up a system now where you had a closing Friday, put that on your calendar for next year and reminds you, right? So those home anniversaries really get the conversation going about that. Business to business, vendors. I don't know if we have any vendor partners out here. I know Mary Gardner will be with us tomorrow. She's I call her the warranty lady. She's here to support you guys. But we need to ask more from our businesses, our vendor to vendors. And it's not just our lenders and our mortgage people. Where you spend money, where do you get your hair done? Dog groomer, dry cleaner, right? Consistent communication with those. My family alone have sold 4 listings in the last 2 years. 2 of them came from my dog groomer and 2 of them came from my dry cleaner. How do they know I'm in real estate? Because every time I drop off my dry cleaning, I talk about real estate. They have flyers that they attach to the dry cleaning. I feature them on my newsletters that we email out, right? We're doing anything and everything we can to contribute business to business. Then the classic ones that we kind of always hear about in traditional real estate is for sale by owners and expireds. And then farming. One thing, just a little tip, with for sale by owners, that used to be my bread and butter. I love a for sale by owner. I call it a reverse open house. I call for sale by owners and don't do the typical, hey, you want to hire a real estate agent. No, the script that I say, the conversation, I don't like scripts personally, the dialogue that I say with the for sale by owner is, hey, I have buyers that may be interested, but I need to preview the house to see if it's a good fit. While I'm there previewing the house for my buyer, I always provide a free condition report. And what that means is, because I go in hundreds of houses a year, I'm just going to give you a little checklist of things that you may want to do. Update the paint, update the carpet, like different things like that. And I always want to give that to you complimentary so I can come from value and contribution. But ultimately, I just want to schedule an appointment just to preview it for my buyer. This is what the condition report looks like. It's a spreadsheet that I then PDF, but I make a list of exterior things that I think they should do and interior things I should do. And there's there's 3 options. An example would be, option 1 would be cleaning the carpet. Option 2 would be replacing it with new carpet. Option 3 is changing it to hardwood floors, right? So there's 3 levels depending on the motivation and the financial ability of the seller. What I do is I do the preview just as promised, no solicitation of the listing. I get all the information and I bring it back to my buyer to see if they're interested. I then email this PDF condition report to the seller and say, as promised, I wanted to give you this condition report, right? Coming from contribution the entire time, no shady business. They can smell a rat, I'm telling you, right? The beautiful thing about that resource, though, is that now you have what we call breadcrumbs. I now can follow up with them and say, hey, I know we gave you the condition report. I mentioned that it might be a good idea to power wash the house. Did you need a vendor? Because I actually have a great power washer in my database that I'd love to provide value and give you his contact information, right? So I can consistently do things like that for follow-up, okay? So old school traditional FSBOs, I get that expired, but come from a different angle. They've heard canned scripting responses. And probably my most favorite is farming. Richmond doesn't farm enough. If you're in Northern Virginia, if you're in other parts of the country, we farm neighborhoods, but Richmond is not doing it at a high level. I have 2 agents that I actually coach on I've coached them for 4 years consistently. Just this farming, 40% of the business just comes from their farming business. 40%. And guess what? They're all listing leads, right? So how do you do that, right? So it's consistent things. I don't know if you guys have heard of Canva, C-A-N-V-A. Have you ever heard of that? Easy. You can look like some graphic designer and you don't have to have any experience whatsoever. This is an example of a market update that one of my clients is doing in Walton Park, right? And they're sending that out. So we teach classes on this, but I wanted to give you value of, hey, how do I get seller leads? These are some that you should consider. I gave you one more, a bonus. This is not in your workbook, but I want you to write it down. Online sellers are looking online. 80% of sellers, even if you got a referral, they Google you. So yes, maybe someone from church said, hey, use Drew to list your property. That seller still Googles me to see if I'm any good, right? So if you Googled yourself, what would it say? What would it show up? What we're seeing is that even the top producers are not aware of what's going on. So Google reviews. If you Google, and I challenge you, I'm not going to do it on the screen, Google real estate agents, Richmond, Virginia, see who pops up and see how many online Google reviews they have. It's in the 300s, 400s, 500s. Some of the top people in our industry in Richmond, Virginia have an insane amount of Google reviews. Zillow sales. I started coaching someone about 3 months ago. They sell about 100 houses a year. Zillow sales only showed they sold 16. Did you know that you have to go into Zillow and claim your sales, the buy and the sell? It's annoying. It's a free product that Zillow kind of allows you to do, but you have to go in and claim those listings and claim those buyers. So if I'm a seller and I got a referral and you're the best agent, a listing agent in town, and I Google you and I only see you sold 16 houses and you've been in the business 10 years, I'm going to scratch my head going, I don't know about this referral, right? The beautiful thing about Google reviews is that it's not you talking, it's your clients. That's your testimonials. That's the modern testimonial option. I have a 15, almost 16-year-old. We don't go anywhere at a restaurant unless she Googles it to see reviews. We can't even buy a daggone burrito without her checking to see if the burrito is good. It's worth our money and our time, even though she's not paying for it, right? So I challenge you to go through these seller sources and find 3, not 9, 3 that you think you could focus on. 3 that you find that fits your personality and that really fits what you're comfortable doing. If you see for sale by owner and that makes your tummy hurt, don't do it, right? Do the stuff that you love, that you like, that you can see you can have quality over quantity, but I would focus on potentially 3 of these, okay? Any other ones that I'm missing? Anything I'm missing from that? Anything you're like, oh, I get my leads from this sort. I may have missed something. Anything? All right, I'm not doing too bad. Inside your workbook, on page 6 is a social media calendar. I didn't put that in the slide, but I want you to see that. We focus on what we call a 5-3-2. So if you want to write that in your notes if you're not using your workbook. 5 community posts, 3 seller-focused real estate posts, and 2 behind-the-scene posts, right? That's the level of posting that should be happening. When Susie says, hey, Drew's on social media a lot, it's only about 11 to 12% of your entire friend group sees the same things you post because of Facebook algorithms, right? So when you think you're being obnoxious, they're only seeing that 10 or 11%, right? So what we look for is it's not just, oh, I sold a house, just sold a house. Again, it's the local expert. 5 community posts. What do I mean by that? I posted one about I got my beard trimmed. Like, hey, this is a great barber shop. Hey, this is a great flower shop. This is a good dog groomer. You're trying to be literally the local expert. If you just word vomit real estate, real estate, real estate, real estate, I always say you're kind of like the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, 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 wah. They stop listening, right? Because when they're not in the mindset to buy or sell, you're annoying them. So come up with different ways. There, it's different. Yeah. So work your way through. Jennifer, did you have a question? I don't know. No. Any questions on that? We're going to take a little bit of break at 2:30, but how's everybody doing? Do you feel like you're still engaged and still good? Okay. All right. Also on page 8 of your workbook, it does talk about farming a little bit. I also think people always think farming has to be a neighborhood. It does not. I have someone that is super into tennis and she's on a tennis league and like she loves tennis, like she eats, breathes, and sleeps tennis. I have another one that's a golf like crazy nut, right? That's what we call social farming, right? So now we're doing things that are connected with those. I have the dog lover. I think I just showed you a postcard of Amy's. She loves her dog, right? We do everything we can that she's entrenched in anything dogs, right? And then we put some swag with it. What I mean by swag is buy stuff with your logo or your name and your phone number on it. So my tennis ladies, they started out with just getting a girls together, a foursome in tennis, right? And then suddenly, about 3 months later, the tennis balls now have her name and her phone number on the tennis balls. Real estate agent, right? My dog girl, love her to death. She's got dog training. She's doing a dog training event in September. What's she doing? She's dropping off dog treats to all her database that have dogs, pets, cats, right? Farming in a social environment is just as impactful as farming to a neighborhood. So if you're like, hey, I don't live in a neighborhood that I think I can farm, I would challenge you that you can do it in a social setting. And the third one on that page 8 is economic farming. Luxury market, senior market, right? If you're a senior, if you're of that age, why the hell are you not tapping into other seniors, right? They are going through the same challenges that you're facing. All the stuff that your kids didn't take with them. All the downside, like what do I keep, what do I not keep? Right? They're going through all the challenges that you're going through. So how do you build a network or a farming around possibly the economic farming? So just get excited. I love farming, and I think it's underutilized in Richmond. And so now we're going to shift gears a little bit, because let's say you've got now you've got the leads covered, right? You've chosen the 3 leads, and now we're like, all right, now what do we do? Well, we know, just like buyers, not all sellers are motivated, right? So we have to really have a conversation about what is the quality inside a database, because we talked about listings being leverage of your time, but if you go with listings and that seller is just dragging their feet and not making a decision, is it really saving your time? No, it's wasting your time just like a buyer would be, right? So one of the first thing I want you to realize in just general database 101, and you all know this, is that a database is not a spreadsheet. It's not. A database should be doing things while you're sleeping. And last time I checked, spreadsheets don't do those kind of things, right? Your database is never finished as well. I have a lot of people that we implement new database software, and they're like, I just need to get everybody's name, everybody's phone number, everybody's birthday in there. It's never going to be that way. Every time you add somebody, you're going to have some missing information, and that's because it's like a heartbeat. It takes food, it takes energy to keep that vessel pumping. And so I want you to just kind of get over that your database is not going to be finished. It's not going to be wrapped in a pretty bow. It's an organic built thing. What's the size of your database? So there's a conflicting conversation in real estate right now that the size of your database is determining the size of your business. I will be of the opinion, and I've proven it over the years that I've coached some high quality teams, that it's about the quality of your database, not the size of it. One of the largest teams I coach that do over 200 transactions a year, their database is 453 people. And it's 80% worked by referral. So it's not size, it's quality, right? But there is kind of a leveling point. There is kind of a baseline. So when I coach anyone, whether they're 2 months in or 20 years in, the first thing is I do look at how many people you have in your database. And I would tell you a baseline that we see as an industry is you need to be around 300 to 350. And if you're not there yet, that's fine. Don't just dump people in, but there's a strategic plan that I would coach you to get to 350 sooner rather than later. And then once you get to 350 plus, it's about enriching that soil. It's constantly adding new information. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but it's all about keeping that alive and ready. Just like we keep our email up most of the day, I would honestly say probably most of us keep Facebook up all day. You should have your database open all day, right? all the time. It should be a living, breathing thing. Just like you're sending emails, you should be adding things to your database. So what do you think is the biggest piece that's missing in most people's database? You know, the name, the phone number, the email address. What do you think is the contact piece that people are missing the most in their databases?
Birth date.
Birth dates, that's a good one. Anybody else have another thought?
Address.
Jason, address. On average, 14% of your contacts have the address. We lost it. It's like suddenly the lost art, right? We have people's names, their emails. We even have their birthday because honestly, we can get it off of Facebook and other opportunities. But the hardest thing for people to have is the address. And I will tell you that when you start building a database of quality versus quantity, and you start intentionally getting people's addresses, it changes the whole world. You can send birthday cards, like real ones, like have a stamp and then you mail it, and handwritten notes, right? Little small gifts. If they're dog lovers, put a little dog treat together, drop it off. If you don't have their address, you can't do any of that, right? It's that connection piece. And why do you need an address when you're focusing on listing leads? Because you want to do price analysis for them, right? So let's say your database has all the doesn't have the addresses. How are you going to do a price analysis for them, right? You can't. So one of the beautiful things, if you focused on your database of quality and got more addresses, you could send a yearly CMA to them that says, hey, Johnny, I know you're probably not looking to sell this year, but if you are, I ran a very quick market analysis, and I think at the minimum you could get $350 for your house. If you want me to do a deeper dive into the value of your home, I'm happy to do the research and let you know. That should go to every single person in your database. But if you don't have their address of where they live, then how in the heck are you going to do a CMA to do so? Again, you're the economist of choice. You're the consultant, right? So taking their address and then giving them data, giving them actual profitability of their asset is your job. So I would say the challenge is getting that. So there's a free website called ineedyouradress.com. I'm going to show you mine. And it's customizable. You can put photos of your family. I would caution you to not make this too, quote, professional. Make it a little fun. Put some fun photos of your pets or your kids or your dog, right? And then this is all customizable. This is what I put. It says, hey everyone, I love receiving mailbox love and wanted to return the favor. Provide us your address, even if you think I have it. Fill out this form so we can keep in touch throughout the years ahead. I promise to have it this time, or save it this time, with gratitude, the Demoy family, right? The cool thing is that now you have what we call the URL. So I can take this link and I can email it to them, I can text it to them, I can private message it through Facebook and Instagram and saying, hey, I was gonna drop you a handwritten note, but crazy thing is I don't have your address, I'm so sorry. Could you just fill this out real quick for me? And then all that can be imported into your database. So one of the challenges I would say is if you're gonna work on database quality is look at how many addresses you have in there and be intentional about what you can do differently there, okay? 4 laws of the database also coming from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is build it, feed it, communicate with it often, and then service all leads. This is a foundational principle of any database. I don't care if you own a Subway or a real estate business, this is all databases. This is not just real estate, right? And so one of the things that I would challenge you to do is that build it seems to be something that we do when we're, quote, a new agent. But feed it is something that we need to do better of, like adding birthdays, adding addresses. If you guys do any type of client events, fun get-togethers, you need to be using that as a way to get new information. I have a couple of my clients doing events this month, and they're doing like ice cream parties, and they check in. They check in, and they literally say, hey, I'm John Smith, I'm checking into the event, right? You can give them a sticker, a wristband, I don't care what it is, right? But what they're then doing is that they're actually then feeding the database. They're like, right now we have your address at this. Is this correct? Hey, we have your email address is this. Is that updated or did you switch jobs, right? So make sure you're constantly feeding that database in a productive way with intentionality. All right? All right, now let's talk about the quality of the lead itself. Seller motivation, right? If we're gonna make listings a situation where we're gonna leverage all of these leads, first thing is that they gotta be ready to sell in this market, doing what they need to do. They gotta be willing to do the work, and then they gotta be able. What we find is that we always think that ready is the only option. Yes, I'm ready to sell, but now they're not willing to paint or get the dog out, right? Or clean the carpet because it smells like cat pee, right? And then are they able? Okay, it sells in 2 days. Where are they gonna move? Are they able to rent? Are they able to buy? Are they able to move in with their mother and father's basement to make it happen, whatever it is, right? So realize that listings or buyer leads have to qualify under these 3 things. And I think sometimes as agents, we only hear they're ready to sell or they're ready to buy, and we don't go deep enough into are they willing to do whatever it takes and able to do whatever it takes. And this applies for buyers as well, and having that deeper conversation. One of the things that I would challenge you to do is rank your leads. And in this screen, you see A, B, and C. I see people do A, B, and C. I see people do green, yellow, red. I don't care, but I would recommend not all leads are equal in quality, right? So when I coach someone, I'm about to show you a pipeline resource that our clients use. But A, they're ready to go, buyers and sellers, but specifically sellers, they're gonna be listing their house within 30 days. They're doing everything, they're painting, they're doing everything they need to do to kind of launch and ready. B is that middle of the road. They're a couple months out. They're gonna wait till their kid graduates high school before they put the sign in the yard, right? A little bit further down the road. And C, honestly, you're gonna have a lot of C's. These are those initial leads that come in through open houses or through prospecting or referrals. You don't even know if they're really gonna do what they need to do to get their house ready to sell. So don't depend on those leads. So does anybody qualify their leads like that? Does anybody use a different system? It allows you to be really intentional on really what the level of leads you have. And I'm gonna kind of walk you through that because there's a difference between a pipeline and a database. And again, I've been an agent for 16 years and people would always say like, database, 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 legion, legion, legion. Those 2 words were like the constants of my training and coaching. Well, then I realized, but I didn't have consistent income. Like I didn't know what leads were coming in, 1 minute I was super busy, 1 minute there was crickets, right? A sales pipeline in any business is essential to see the longevity of your income and the projected income. So what I'm gonna show you is a sales pipeline that we do. It's super sexy, it's a spreadsheet, but it works. So a pipeline for sellers, they have their hand raised that they're gonna they're gonna sell in 2021. So don't put anything other than 2021 leads on there. Everybody else, you can keep them in your database and nurture them, right? But they're not income for you for 2021. Versus a database is a collection of groups of people that potentially will sell or buy, right? We need to kind of separate the herd there, right? And I think sometimes it all gets clumped in a database together. So here at Freedom, we focus on our pipeline. We set goals on how many leads are in the pipeline. We do A, B, C ranking of quality, and we focus on what the quantity or quality of those look like. So this is a spreadsheet that our organization used, and this is the exact spreadsheet I literally used. It was on an Excel, now it's on Google, super fancy. But I've used this literally for 10 years. It has seller leads, it has buyer leads, and then after that, it turns into transactions, current listings, properties under contract, and closed. And it's just like Legos, right? So I have a seller lead. Now they're like, all right, they are ready to rock and roll, they're ready to list their property. I just cut and paste that and move it down to currently active in MLS. Once it goes under contract in 2 days, I cut and paste it, move it down. Just moving it down, right? And so an example here is the pipeline is potential leads versus a transaction is your client. So in kind of fiduciary world, it's customer versus client, right? A customer hasn't signed a legal agreement with you versus a client has signed one. So you'll see the differential there. But the key things that I'm looking at is number of leads I have, number one. Lead date is important because what month did I get that lead, right? To see trends. Lead source, because remember we talked about we want to focus on 3 lead sources. So if I'm spending a lot of money on, again, the example of Facebook, and I now go on my pipeline tracker and I don't see any leads coming from Facebook, I may need to be, as a business owner, to switch gears. That's not working, right? Also, expected list date. A little bit of this is guessing, but a lot of it's a conversation of, hey, Mr. Seller, if the timing is right and we got the price that you desired, what month do you think you would want to get your house on the market? And you'll hear them, they'll talk through it. They're like, well, my daughter, she gets out of high school in June. I probably need to do some things around the house by July. So probably August, right? So put that in there, right? We need leads every single month. And that allows you, and then expected list price. And then the cool thing is it also tells you how much money you're going to make. And maybe money doesn't motivate you, but when you see 34,000 or 98,000, I don't know, lights a fire off somebody's butt, right? To keep following. It's also a really great, simple tool to use for lead follow-up. All leads go on here, nothing slips through the crack, keeping it simple. What questions do you have about a pipeline? Because this is kind of not something that's on a consistent. Are these spreadsheets going to be provided to us? We don't normally give you the spreadsheet because that's kind of our proprietary thing, but I'm happy to give you a screenshot of what it looks like and you can recreate one if that's okay. I mean, it's not like rocket science, it's a spreadsheet. But our coaching clients, I use this with them. We interact with this every time I coach with them. So what do you guys think of a pipeline? Does anybody use a pipeline? Jason's saying yes, sort of. Tell me more, Jason. Tell me more.
I've got a pipeline, but I haven't been doing a good job of it. I definitely need to get on it a little better. No
and
doubt.
So do you use that pipeline daily? Is it a spreadsheet? What is it? Where is it at?
I don't. I've got it in the Buffini system, so it's sitting in there. So I use it for there. It's good to kind of remind myself who I sent handwritten notes to is one of my favorite things about it.
Buffini's got a good system. I would say just make sure you're using it at a high level. I also see people, if they're not spreadsheet people, they use big dry erase boards. So I have literally clients that I coach that they send me their pipeline boards. They have one dry erase for A leads, one dry erase board separate for B leads, and one dry erase board for C leads. Some people like to see the visual of it, and they like to erase and move. Like, oh, they're a C, let me erase, move them to a B. They like the satisfaction of kind of moving them up and down the pipeline. So you don't have to use a spreadsheet. I would challenge you that you need a lot of the same information. And so those that I coach that like it visually, there's actually a dry erase board, but you can actually buy magnetic dry erase business cards on Amazon for like 20 bucks. And we put their name, the price, what month they're going to buy or sell, and then if it's a buyer or seller lead, what source it came from. And then they just move the magnet from the C board to the B board to the A board, rather than keeping the dry erase, because some people are OCD about it all lining up. So that's just a little tip or trick. If you're a visual person, maybe using a dry erase board, but there's a lot of evidence that relies on a pipeline. And I coach teams that use one pipeline and all of their teammates add their leads together. And one thing we found is that they're doing a lot of matchmaking, saying, hey, this is a listing and we have a buyer and we can do an off-market sale. We can do that, right? So that's been great to collaborate with them and help track their leads that way. So I wanted to make you realize that, like, A database is huge. Get to that 350 number, focus on quality, but you're probably going to, in my opinion, have to have some type of leads pipeline because leads fall through the crack, and we don't know the different levels of quality versus quantity. And I don't know if you ever had this happen, but one of your friends calls you and said, oh my God, I'm so excited. I bought a house and it wasn't with you. And you have to like secretly be happy for them, even though you want to like unfriend them and like not deal with them. A pipeline will help not eliminate that, but minimize that as much as possible, okay? All right, the other thing, kind of wrapping up this session, we'll take a quick break in a few minutes, is that we're not really in a lead generating business right now, we're in a lead catching. And what I mean by that is most of us have a lot of leads, we just have to define, are they good leads or bad leads? But again, if we're focusing on seller leads, how do we catch more leads? And what I define the difference is how do we train people or coach people or consult people to give us seller leads, right? Most of us are not of the mindset that we want to cold call every day of our life, which I can appreciate that method. But most of us, again, 48% of the business should come from sphere of influence. We want to catch some leads. It would be so much nicer to wake up in your inbox and say, have a lead come from your friend that says, hey, I think my neighbor wants to sell, rather than you calling 13 expireds and they cuss you out or yell at you, right? The quality of that experience for you is going to be different, right? So we got to make sure that we start off on the right foot. So when you get a seller lead, that's game on, and you have to create a system, remember that's the first thing, where you can capture as much information ahead of time. What I mean by that is a lot of times with sellers, go on the listing appointment, and that's when we do our like investigative questions. We're sitting on their couch or their kitchen table, and we're saying, well, how long, what's the reason you want to sell? Like, how many kids do you have? What's your pup? Like, we want to get ahead of that and know all that information ahead of time. But we don't want to be on the phone for 2 hours. Or we may be uncomfortable asking some sellers some questions. Like, are you current with your mortgage payment? Has anybody ever asked that question and go, oh God, they're going to think I'm like telling them that they don't pay their bills, right? So what I would coach and recommend, and that we do, is that we use a digital Google form, and I'm going to show you ours, or you can create one in a PDF format. And so what we do is we get the listing lead, and we're going to schedule the appointment, right? So I'm going to call Mr. Seller and say, I'm excited. My sister said that you're looking to sell your home, and I'd love to schedule a time for us to meet face-to-face in your home. Well, let's meet tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Perfect. I'll put that in my calendar. What I'm going to do is actually send you a calendar reminder, an email confirmation, but I'm also going to email you a link to what we call a seller questionnaire. And I want you, and if there's a second person that lives in the house, both of you to take that link and fill it out. It's a lot of good information that's going to help me be the best consultant I can in getting your home sold and focusing on the right priorities. Because some sellers have different ideas of what their expectations of what the transaction is going to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email that 3 o'clock appointment, and then I'm going to actually send them this link. The cool thing about a Google, if you've ever used Google Forms, is that this link is like a website. It never changes. You can have that as a template email and use the same link over and over and over again. This link doesn't ever change. And it's going to ask them questions about their name and all that information, best way to reach you, what do you think your house is worth, so all that's some really good information. And also we find is that they don't give you surface level answers. Have you ever worked with a seller and you asked them a question and they answered it, but they weren't exactly truthful, they kind of were, has that happened to you? Yeah. Because sometimes when we're asked questions as humans, we just want to move on quickly. But if they're sitting in the comfort of their own home with this up on their laptops or on their phone, they can answer this question in a timely manner that they can think through their answer. So the first thing I would tell you is to use something like a lead catching form, which is like a seller questionnaire. This is the back end of it. The one I showed you was what the consumer sees. This is what you see. and it's got a button on the top that says responses. So this person, now you can print it. You can put it in a spreadsheet. You see this green icon on the right, it'll export it into a spreadsheet. So we have one for buyers too, but now you can get a lot of deep information, stuff that you would be either uncomfortable to ask face-to-face, or you're just inefficient with your time and you don't want to be at the listing appointment for 3 hours. Does anybody else use any type of lead catching? And I'm going to share this with you, yes. So the good thing is that you're not going to have to reinvent this form. I'm going to give it to you and you just need to make a copy and you can customize it. So I've already done this for you, so you can just use this inside there. Has anybody, like the question is, does anybody use some type of seller questionnaire when they get their seller leads? Anybody? What do they use? Nothing? You just kind of do it on the phone? We're finding that people love this because, again, they can do it when they want to do it, and it also is good for you to have it. I would then print it off and bring it to the appointment. And we'll talk about kind of the utilization of this a little bit more, but I think right now we got to realize we're in that lead catching mode. The more information you can have as the listing agent, the better. More marketing power, more motivation, because sellers sometimes change the script when you're negotiating contracts and you're like, well, that's interesting. So things like that. All right. All right. Let me just make sure we're on. All right. We talked about that. And now let's talk about kind of what I call closing for the appointment. So you did that phone conversation. You're sending them that lead catching form. Now you're going to literally say, I'm going to see you at 3 o'clock tomorrow, right? So one of the things that I would tell you is that we need to really be conscious of going for what I call going for the close without sounding like a salesperson, like an ambulance chaser. Nobody likes to be sold to. We're in definitely of a generation in the last 7 to 10 years that we know when we can feel a salesperson on us. A lot of coaching and training programs I've been to, it's just that yucky script that no one likes. So these are a few that I would recommend. Something, it's called a hard close, but it's actually pretty soft. It says, let's meet, right? Something simple. A direct close, can we meet today at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock tomorrow? You probably have heard that. The one that, if you look on the screen, the one that I like the most, and it's what we call a pattern interrupt. If you're going to write on that page, on page 13, it's a little bit of a coaching and conversation dialogue. It's called the take back close. If you read the screen, I'm going to verbally kind of go with, tell you it, but it says, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. To be honest, I'm not sure I can help you. But what I'd be happy to do is meet with you and personally find out if I can be one of the best listing agents for you. To be honest with you, I'm not sure I can help you. Most real estate agents cringe that they don't think they can help, right? Our ego, our personality is like, we can help everyone. But remember, they have to be willing, able, and ready, right? And we don't know that yet. We just had literally possibly a 30-minute conversation with a seller lead. So you may not be able to help them. They may be upside down. They may be in foreclosure too far. They may want $450 and it's only worth $350, right? We don't have enough information because, again, we're at the appointment stage. So I would challenge you to use a little bit of a different close technique that says, it sounds like your house is great. It sounds like, based on the conversation, we can make things work. To be honest with you, I don't know that yet, but the more we find out and the more that we kind of interact together, we'll be able to see if I'm the listing agent for you and you're the seller for me. It mixes that conversation to where it's a win-win and it's not so icky and it's so sales-based. A tie down is another one. It's interesting that when this technique is used, I always visualize someone tied to a chair. It's not that. It's just continuing the conversation. So wouldn't it make sense for us to meet and discuss the selling process further, right? So you had this great conversation, you're talking about meeting them at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and it just wouldn't it make sense for us to meet to discuss in more detail about the selling process with your house? Like, they're gonna be like, yeah, 95% of people aren't going to be like, nah, I don't know about that, right? So just think about as you're getting in preparation for the appointment, which we'll go into, like, you got to close for it. I think sometimes we do that initial needs analysis and we don't go for that close. And we talked about that. Also, there's some slang. Rather than saying the word appointment, use the words like swing by or stop in. A lot of times when we go super aggressive with the word appointment, it sounds like we're going to a lawyer's office or a dentist appointment. And if you have a seller that's kind of waffling and they're not sure if they really want to sell their house, right, because there's a lot of factors that they're trying to kind of negate, you can modify that word appointment and say, hey, you know, it's been great talking to you. I had a great conversation. I'm not sure if I can help you or not, but why don't we do this? I'll just swing by. We'll talk about it for 20 to 30 minutes, a little bit further in person, and we'll just make a decision at a later date. What we're tending to see is sellers are shy right now, or they're gun shy really, because they're afraid of being homeless. They're afraid of not getting what they need to do done, or they have all these repairs they need to do. And they're not even open to the appointment. I think I would challenge you and coach you, your dialogue, soften it up. Don't be so direct, but at the same time, you still have to go for a close. So it's kind of finding that counterbalance, that yin and that yang of what a hard close is versus a soft edge. Anybody have an opinion about closing? Do you guys think you close for appointments well? You feel like you're going in the right direction? Yes, no, maybe so? All right, well, I think the last thing before we take a 5-minute break, kind of stretch our legs, go to the restroom, is that listings provide, and we're on page 14 of your workbook, marketing opportunities. And is this guy, the dog is it Luke? Lucy, Luke, right? Yes. That is the smartest, most brilliant marketing idea I've ever heard. Like, who doesn't love a dog? I mean, so cute. But anyway, marketing opportunities, right? It's that consistent branding. Buyer's agents, they don't get to put Luke in the yard, right? Buyer's agents don't get to put the sold sign on the sign, which is interesting because they're the one that brought the buyer, right? But listing agents get all the glory. They get the sold, they get the coming soon. They get every opportunity to market themselves and brand themselves, right? And also the brokerage branding, right? It's again that market share. The more orange signs and orange Lukes in Richmond, Virginia, the more the buy-in of the seller, because again, they're trying to see if you're the local expert. And if they've never seen that sign before, they're like, who is this person? What is this company? Right? So the more that we can get those signs in there, open houses, buyers don't do open houses, sellers do, right? Listing agents do. Internet leads, Zillow and Realtor.com link directly to MLS. Buyer's agents, you don't get that. Circle prospecting, you could call for a buyer, you could, but I'm telling you, there's more credibility when you say, I was the listing agent and it sold in 2 days and I have other buyers wanting, got 6 other offers, so we have 5 other buyers that want to buy in that neighborhood. If you'd like to consider listing, I'd love to talk to you about the price of your home, right? And then credibility in your community. We're literally housing people and providing employment. A lot of our listings, new carpet, new paint. We're providing a lot of labor to our community, right? And again, it shows that expert. And because you know that data, because you're going to do the research, you're going to be consistently looking at that. So hopefully that's kind of where we're at. What we're going to take like a slight break. I'm going to stay on, so if you guys want to chat with me over any of the topics we've covered so far, I'll chat with you. But it's right at 2:30 on the dot. I'm going to take a 5-minute, I'm going to set a 5-minute timer, and then we're going to go into the last part of preparing for the appointment and actually going into the appointment itself for the last half of our day. All right? So go take a break, and I'm setting a timer so be back by 2:35. Let me set a timer here. Anybody have any questions? I can go back on certain slides if I went too fast. If you need me to answer or clarify questions, I know I talk fast, so I have a tendency to do that. So otherwise, we'll hang out for a little bit.
I had a question, Drew.
Sure.
So when you're speaking of farming in the area, how do you go about picking that area?
It's a lovely question. So there is what we call a turn rate. And so when I teach the class, the two things you have to know about a neighborhood is the first thing is how many houses are in that neighborhood.
Okay.
So you're going to go into the realist tax record. You're going to, there's a, I can even show you real quick. You're going to the tax record and you're going to actually pull how many houses are in that neighborhood. So let me go real quick. Number. So the first thing you're going to need to know is how many doors essentially is what that is. So, oh, that's all right. I'm going to go to the tax record, and then I'm going to go into realist, and then I'm going to go into my search, and then you'll see here's subdivision right here.
Okay.
So if I'm going to do, let's say, Stonehenge. Is that right? I think it's no. So then all right, so I'll do all the sections. So I'll click all these real quick. I'll just act like I did, and then I'll apply. And then when I hit search, it's going to tell me how many. So right now, according to this search, there's 52 in this neighborhood, which isn't true because I needed more to click. But the first is figure out how many people live in the neighborhood. The second is then go into MLS and do a 12-month back search on how many homes have sold in that neighborhood, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do single family. I'm going to go back sold. And I'm going to change this to 365 days. Then I'm going to put Stonehenge in the and then there's 27 right here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take the number of houses and the number of sold in 12 months, and I'm going to divide those two together. And I'm going to figure out what I call a turn rate. An industry average is they need to turn at 7. And it's sometimes hard. I got a few people that are like 5.5, 6.5 as far as percent. But the key thing that I think is a mistake is people are like, I'm going to farm my neighborhood. Okay, well, how many houses have sold in your neighborhood? Because there has to be enough. So I had one the other day, there was only 11 houses sold the entire year. I said, well, that's not even one house a month. So you're going to spend possibly $300-400 a month, and you're only going to sell 1 or 2 houses. Like, to be a gorilla, to be a farming expert, you would take about 20%, which again, Richmond doesn't farm at a high level. It's an untapped market. So that means you're going to sell 4 or 5 houses. Like, that's too much money for you to be spending to only sell 1 or 2 houses a year. So I typically see where people not doing that research. So figure out the turn rate, 7%-ish, doors divided by 12 months of sales.
Okay. Thank you, Drew.
Absolutely. Takes a minute. You have to be strategic with it. It also takes time too, like farming. You have to give it at least 6 months. Another little tip is we do what we call a 3-2-1 in farming. A lot of farming in neighborhoods, people just send 1 postcard every month. But to warm up a neighborhood, you need to do 3 touches the first month, 2 touches the second month, and then the third month you get in that once a month rhythm. So when I say touch, doesn't mean 3 postcards, but maybe you call the neighborhood is 1 touch. You door knock is a 2nd touch, and the 3rd is a postcard, right? So month 1, you kind of want to warm it up. And then month 2, you want to work your way, and then you get into the rhythm of just a once a month. And there's some science and psychology behind that. It's really the mindset. It's them noticing you, because everybody gets junk mail. Everybody sees a lot of advertisements. So it takes a minute for your brain to physically register as call your RAS. And, you know, it's like buying a watch. As soon as you buy it, then all of a sudden you see other people wearing the same watch. It's because your brain is starting to pick up on those particles. So without being too geeky, that's the method to the madness. Okay?
No, makes sense.
Sure. All right.
And
Well,
so you're going for the goal of 20%.
We call it the gorilla. 20% is ultimately your plan. Yeah. But that takes years to do. So I have two, a third one just starting her farm. They're at like 15, one's at 12%, one's at 15%, but it's years of strategic. And again, I teach, it's not just about doing mailings, it's about giving back to your community. Like they do, like one of them's doing an ice cream truck at the end of the summer for the neighborhood. They do food drives, they do yard sales. Like it's not just, I send a postcard every month, because people can sniff out that you just want a paycheck. It's about, again, living in that community and really being a part of it. So getting to that 20% takes a minute, but once you have it, it's hard for someone else to take it from you. Even if they're sending postcards out to that same neighborhood, they're not going to use them because they're not contributing at a level that you are. All right, well, let's dive back in. We'll kind of roll through the rest of this. But before I do that, any ahas of the first kind of section? Is there anything, chosen your one thing to implement, or are we still searching for it? Give me a pulse. Am I boring? Is it like a lecture? Is it some webinar that you're like, please stop? No, just kidding. Tell me some good feedback.
I'll say most of this stuff, whenever it comes to coaching, a lot of it we've heard before, but it's the implementation is what I'm lacking at myself.
So what do you think is the lack of implementation? I mean, being transparent and vulnerable here, like I get that. What do you think, if you've heard it before and not pulled the trigger, there's something not connecting, right, with execution of the plan?
For sure, totally agree. I mean, God knows I can tell you how busy I am in this world, and everybody else can. But the thing is, there's other people that are doing this, and they are more busy than me. So how can they pull it off?
So all I'll tell you is keeping it simple.
Yeah.
And then accountability, right? So one of the things that I coach and mentor a lot of this material, but we break it down into very simple tasks. It's really about doing like the farming example is like week 1, figure out the turn rate. Week 2, like it may take you a month to do it, but it's more baby steps. So yeah. I tend to see people trying to take on too much on implementing one of these systems.
100% agree. One thing that I took out that was my aha moment was the anniversaries of the property sales. Mm-hmm. I mean, that right there, I should just every day say, look, I'm going to do 30 minutes to an hour, whatever it is, but force yourself to do it. Go back in your transactions, find out when those anniversaries are, put it in your phone, put it in your database, wherever it is, make sure you got their address, and then start reaching out to them. I mean, a great way to reach out. You just drop off a bottle of champagne out of the blue, a $20 bottle of champagne with a nice handwritten note and say, man, it's been 3 years.
And I love that because it's about you're intending to do that, but also go even simpler, like have 6 bottles of wine with a tag already on it sitting in your office, right? Because it's a grab and go. Because if you're like, oh, I got to go by Trader Joe's to buy the bottle of wine, then I got to go find a bow, and then I got to find a card, like that's where we get stuck. That's how simple. I don't know 100%. If you'll be able to see behind me. That's all like the little gifts, Popeyes, little anniversary gifts. They're set up. It's a grab and go system. I don't know if you can see my little shelf there.
You can save money that way too. You go get a whole box of wine or champagne. You're getting it for 12 at a time as opposed to 1 at a time.
Yeah, that's a huge. Again, when I'm coaching people, I'm like, how many anniversary gifts do you have to deliver this month? And we go through their database, right? You got 6, great. You have all the supplies you need. Yes, awesome, good, done. It seems, again, it's the execution of going to buy the bottle of wine or having the tag put on there. I think that's where we get the cog in the wheel happen. So I think the answer to that is just creating it so it's so simple. You have no excuse because the bottle's already sitting on your desk.
Simplifying is I think that's the most genius part is we break it down to one simple moment instead of, because the problem is, I end up taking this class and it's like, oh my God, there's so many things I want to do. It's like you said at the beginning, it's like pick one of these things and do
one thing.
Yeah. And then do it. And that's not that hard. If I tell you that, if I tell anybody on here, I'm saying, hey, are you able to pick one thing and implement it? Every single person on here would say yes.
Yeah. And I would tell you again, that's at 48%. Loving on your people is the best use of your time and money. loving on them, giving them a bottle of wine, dropping off dog treats. We have so many little gifts of randomness back there, right? Baby gifts. I got all kinds of stuff because I see somebody on Facebook had a baby. My intention is to drop something off, but I don't, right? So now I have 2 baby gifts, a boy and a girl one, hanging out back here, right? Buying that stuff, getting it ready so you can just grab and go is key. I'm glad you picked up. That's great.
What is the worst thing that's going to happen here? The worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to feel really good for your soul, and it's going to feel really good for theirs. And if that's the worst thing we're talking, I mean, count me in on that any day of the week.
And again, we're in the human business, not the housing business.
No doubt.
Right? And if you don't like humans, then you shouldn't be in this business.
100%.
Right. Well, let's roll into that last thing was that leverage piece. Leveraging your time. Yes, prepping the home is time. But I'll tell you, in this market, we see so many as-is houses. I see so many listings that in a previous life, probably 6 months or a year ago, I would say paint this, carpet this. But right now I'm like, just put it on the market. And the crazy thing sells at $40,000 above asking, right? So right now, there is the leverage of time, like getting the house prepped. Yes, I still think foundationally you need to do curb appeal and cleanliness and neutral paint colors. But staging photos and pre-marketing, those do take time, but really all of this is automated. A lot of the stuff on the listing side is automated. So you could be hanging out on the beach and literally negotiating a contract, right? I was in Florida a month ago. We could do those things because we don't have to be physically in the house because we have AuthentiSign, dot loop, electronic signatures, things like that, okay? So let's kind of go into what we consider chapter 2. I think this is the magic. And I think that one of my favorite books, I hope that you guys have read, this is older, I don't know if it's that old, I don't know what it was. Have you ever heard of The Purple Cow? Have you ever read this book? Part of the beauty of this book is look how thin it is. It's super thin. It's not very large. It's like 142 pages. Seth Godin is awesome when it comes to this book. And he basically in the book, it's not a real estate book, it's about how do you stand out amongst your peers? How does the Ritz-Carlton stand out amongst other hotel chains? How does Nordstrom stand out amongst other retail chains, right? And so he specifically gave an example of Krispy Kreme donuts. And ironically, I have not had a Krispy Kreme donut until I was 40 years old. Never had one in my life. And my wife it was like, we went to dinner and it was a beautiful dinner. And she's like, I want a Krispy Kreme donut at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, who eats donuts at 11 o'clock at night? This is the craziest idea I've ever. Has anybody ever had a Krispy Kreme donut like at 11 or 12? Well, everybody, I wasn't the only one because we were in line with like 25 cars. And I thought, who in the hell wants to buy a donut at 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night? Well, the whole concept is this sign, and I wasn't aware of it, but that hot now sign, they turn it on and like everybody comes racing out of their houses to buy a $2 donut. Are you those crazy people? Like that's literally what it's like. Well, in The Purple Cow, he talks about the fact of Krispy Kremes, the Ritz-Carltons, the Nordstroms of our industry do something sometimes so simple that allows you to stand out amongst the black and white and the brown cows. You're that purple cow. So if you're as a listing specialist and you're competing for the listing and maybe they're interviewing 2 real estate agents or 3, how do you stand out? Is it staging? Is it photography? Is it giving them price for their house? No. Because hopefully all of them are at this point are doing that, right? A lot of our competitors or counterparts are offering staging services or virtual tours and all those things. So we have to up our game. We can't just rely on that technology. So I would challenge you, this next thing is what we call the pre-listing magic. I don't know if anybody does this, but we're going to walk through for the next 20 minutes a simple, strategic way that when you get a listing lead, there's no question, no competition even in sight, because you're going to be so unique that you're going to stand out that unless you completely screw it up, you pretty much got it in the bag. All right, so let's walk through this. maybe if my clicker works. So the first thing is that you got to think about what your unique value proposition is. And it's funny that I've actually, when we used to do live workshops, this really is hard for a lot of real estate agents. We talk about a lot of the same word. We use a lot of the same words: trust, honesty, integrity. We talk about fiduciary, negotiation, right? But that's not unique. We should all be doing those things. That's the legal responsibility we accepted when we got our license, right? That's not unique. So what I would challenge you to do, and get kind of bonus homework, you don't have to do it, but I like overachievers, is on page 15, it has these 4 questions with some blank spots. And the goal of this page is to get your brain kind of unlocked and loosened up a little bit. What makes you stand out, and I would say in your business right now? What do you think makes you stand out? What shows your personality would be a second question. How do I know who you are? And then of the top, the bottom 2, probably the most influential on your decisions on unique value proposition is, what would your family say your top 3 characteristics are? Your family, not your past clients. And then how can you make that come to life in your pre-listing presentation? See, the pre-listing presentation, which is something you're going to drop off prior to your appointment, needs to have your personality to it. It needs to kind of get a flavor or a vibe of them meeting you before they meet you, right? So what can you do to stand out? What is your personality? What do you like, right? What is your favorite things? I love Tootsie Rolls. Like, that's literally my candy. I know I'm like 100, but I love a Tootsie Roll. So that's unique to me. Like, I enjoy that. So that probably is going to go in my pre-listing box, and I'm going to put some Tootsie Rolls in there. And that conversation will come up later. I'll be like, hey, did you guys enjoy the Tootsie Rolls I put in the pre-listing? And they're like, oh yeah, they were great. And I'm like, that's my favorite candy, right? We find some commonality. And then they're like, well, I don't like Tootsie Rolls, I like gummy bears, right? Yeah, we're grown-ass adults and we're talking about candy, but guess what? It's starting connecting your relationship building skills, right? Your favorite color is red, right? Well, you may have to ditch the orange and focus on red, right? If that's your personality, that needs to be what you need to focus on. So let's kind of walk through what's inside this so-called pre-listing presentation, right? So if you're looking at it specifically on page 16, it provides sellers with the paperwork they need to get their home listed, so it saves you time. Meaning you have to print off the listing paperwork blank and put it in this folder or box, which we'll talk about. Some personalities read every letter of the alphabet. They read every paragraph. And so now you're at the listing appointment, you're asking them to sign a legal binding document, and you're not even giving them time to read it. So include it in the pre-listing. It also saves you time by preemptively answering some questions. Less surprising, right? So inside, you're going to give them your marketing plan. You're going to give them your bio, your resume, some testimonials that you got off Google. You're going to give them some knowledge ahead of time because they're already going to research you, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to preemptively give them some answers to their questions. Who are you? How long have you been in real estate? How many houses have you sold? What's your favorite sport? Again, not all professional, blend it with some personal, because again, it's about human connection. It's also going to give the sellers extra time to see the marketing data of the current market. Now, I wouldn't say this is the CMA, but this is going to give some averages. The average sales price is this. The average days on market is this. The average time of list to sale price is this. Get their mind right, because when you say it's going to sell in 2 days because that's the average market data, they need to some of them might freak out. Like, that might be too soon. That might actually not be a positive thing for some sellers, right? It also shows the seller your brand and your professional style. Again, it's done in a professional way. It's bound, it's booked, it's done, it's printed in a high quality way. It's not photocopied, crooked, stapled on the corner, thrown on their front door. It's a quality product. Before real estate, I worked at Nordstrom. I was the sales manager for 15 years. You don't walk into a Nordstrom and they just hand you the bag. They walk around the corner. They put tissue there. Like there's a lot of pride into giving the presentation of the shirt or the blouse that you just purchased, right? So, and a lot of times with listings or sellers specifically, we don't get that opportunity until we're sitting in front of them. We want them to see this package to be like, wow, she's going to market my property just like this. The quality of this product in this box is the product that I'm going to get when she markets it online, when she prepares brochures for my house, when she does an open house. It's going to make you stand out. But the biggest thing with a pre-list is it builds trust, and it sets you up for the first impression. I will tell you, there is probably, out of all the people I've coached, hundreds of people, there is a handful of people that do this at a high level and consistently. So if you're thinking, how do I attract more sellers? How do I get them to refer me more listings? You do a red carpet, stop till you drop pre-listing presentation, and you'll blow the competition out of the waters. And you know what? The people that are on this call and they're only 2 months in the business, you do something like this and we kind of curtail it correctly, they're not going to ask you how long you've been in the business because they're so impressed with your presentation and your knowledge of the market and your marketing data and the quality of the product. They're not going to question that you've been in the business only 2 months. You're going to take listings from those seasoned agents. I remember doing this, and I was up against an agent in Richmond, and she's the kind of one of these iconic names I've heard forever. And it was a $650,000 house in Fox Hall. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this listing. I'm up against this other agent. She sells a ton of houses in this neighborhood. I dropped off my pre-list, went to the appointment, and they were like, you're professional. You were ahead of the game. You really stood out. I didn't sell one house in that neighborhood. I had no credibility from an experience standpoint, but I got that listing, and then guess what? The rest is history, because once I sold that one, now I sold properties in the neighborhood. So this is just as important for a new agent as it is an experienced agent, and I think sometimes we take that for granted. So pre-listing packet delivery, you need to tell your seller that you're going to do this. Think about it like Easter egg hunt. You need to tell them what they're looking for, right? Tell your seller that you're going to deliver a package within 24 hours. Don't make it a surprise. Have these pre-listing packets, contents already printed. AKA, I'm going to give you your pre-listing packet. I'm going to give you the whole presentation in editable format, so you guys don't even have to sweat that. If you don't have a pre-listing packet, you will by the end of day 2, right? So you're going to have this presentation. You can bind it in a really nice presentation folder, spiral bound. There's a lot of options out there, but you're going to have this. And you're not going to chintz on it. You're going to do quality paper. You're going to do color. You're going to make it look nice, right? And then create a package around it. And I'm going to give you some examples around it, right? So maybe it's in a box. Maybe it's in a gift bag with some tissue paper, right? It's going to be dropped off at the front door. So you kind of give them that red carpet approach. I also, if you did the questionnaire, that lead catching form, there's questions in there about their lifestyle, their dogs, their family, their kids. So let's say they put on the questionnaire that they had 2 kids, one's 6 years old, one's 10 years old, right? May want to get a couple kid items and throw that in that bag or that box. They say they have a pug. Again, listing opportunity there. I knew they had 2 pugs because it was from my dog groomer. And so when I dropped off my pre-listing package, I had dog bones in there, and I put a handwritten note. I can't remember what the name of the dogs were, to be honest, but I would say, John and Jill, I love the fact that you have 2 beautiful pugs. I can't wait to meet them, right? And that's in that bag with that. Again, like what Jason was saying, you got to have some of that stuff ready, and it needs to be simple. Like these pre-listing things have to be pre-printed, have your little swag bags or whatever you're having those available to you. Then drop off at the front door, and if you can't drop it off, have somebody drop it off. Honestly, if I have a college person that drops off a lot of my stuff, I pay her like 20, 30 bucks, and I'm like, hey, I need you to, I put it on my doorstep. She takes it from my doorstep and drops it off at my listing, right? So it doesn't mean you have to drop it off, right? Maybe your wife or your husband or your spouse or your partner is driving by that side of town. You can say, you don't need to ring the doorbell. I just need you to drop this package at the front door, right? Think about it leverage-wise. It doesn't have to be you delivering it. And then text them a photo. It says, I just dropped off a package in preparation for an appointment tomorrow at 3. Please review, write down any questions that may come up. And I'll review this and we'll go over it when we meet. Simple stuff, but starts to create that purple cow experience. So one of the challenges I would say is, what does it look like? So we fell in love with these boxes. I'm going to get up, I'm going to grab one that we have. Beautiful thing is that they're easy to do. We just went through them, but these are the boxes that we created. You can create whatever size and shape. And we added our logo on there, we put a quote on there, and then we put our cute little swag stuff in ours. But what if this showed up on your doorstep and it was your pre-listing packet with your logo on it? If it was the size of maybe, 8.5 by 11, a cardboard. I'll tell you, before I did that, before I invested in like boxes, I did a nice leather bound, I bought it online and had my logo embossed in the leather pre-ring binder. And it had my logo embedded in it. And then I put the presentation in there, but I laminated it. And I took it back. Like I left it there, and then I did my listing appointment, and I did take that back home with me. So they realized they were borrowing it. They weren't keeping it forever. But then I wrapped it in a bow and I put some cute stuff in there. I put a little gift bag beside it. So why do you think I'm bringing this up in the middle of a listing seller boot camp? Why do you think now is the time to kind of stand out before you even meet these people, right? These people, you haven't even made it to the listing, but what's your thought process on doing something, or maybe you've already done something in the past?
I absolutely love this, Drew.
So
love it. Yes. Yes.
And what do you think is like your flair? What's going to make it unique to you that you can some fun to it?
I think I'm probably going to do a box. So my daughter does charcuterie boards, and she's got these great boxes with see-through top. And I think I may use, something similar and a bow and, Luke stamped on it or something, and make it very personal for them.
Yeah, I love that. I have some brokerages that literally have bought boxes for the brokerage, and they sell them to the agents, but they're like, hey, you can buy them at a bulk discount. You could do that. There's a lot of, also people are using recyclable bags, the bags that you can buy groceries in, and you can buy 100 of them, right? And you just stick your folder in there. So there's a lot of fun ideas, but I love that. Just fun, simple ways to stand out. Because again, the goal is not to just take one listing, it's to get more referrals. So you're doing this to kind of get the listing, but you're really trying to implant into the seller's kind of mindset that you're going above and beyond, so then they can give you more referrals. Like, we don't want to just sell one house, we want to sell multiple houses to their sphere of influence, to their community and network of people, okay? So this is the sample of what we call the seller's guide, which is this pre-listing. And so I'm going to give you a link to this. And it's inside Canva, which we are obsessed with Canva because how easy it is. And so you'll see, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this a little better. Ooh, that's a little much. You can kind of, hold on, but it's, you can add color to it. You can add Luke to it, I think, right? You can add all kinds of fun stuff. Your company probably already has something that you could customize because you got some amazing technology in NextHome, right? So put your information in there. What's your steps? Just clean, simple, first, just checklist-based stuff. Again, it's not high, heavy content. You're not giving away the farm. You're not giving any secrets away, but these are things that people like to see. And the beauty of it is they get to look at it at their leisure, and you don't have to go slide by slide. Because have you ever been to a listing appointment and they look like they're about to fall asleep? That means they're not interested. That's just, I'm telling you, right? They need to, it talks about showings. that probably needs to be modified a little bit. The market's crazy with the way showings are right now, right? Offers, again, adding things in there that may be negotiations, things like that. So I encourage you to do that. And we'll give you that link. We'll just work on our self-study guide to do that. Other things inside of that. Sure, yeah.
Hey, I've got a quick question. So I love this because I think what it shows is that if I got this as a seller, then this is the level that you're going to give me before you even met me,
Correct.
right? So when you meet me, you know it's going to be high quality, right? And so that just sets the standard, which I really like. My question to you though is, you know, you've got A, B, and C sellers, right, that you haven't met, that you maybe have pre-qualified a little bit, they're going to be listing soon or in a little while or later. Do you qualify who you give this to? Because I doubt that you probably generate a lot of listing presentations. Are you just going to give this to everybody? And
I do give this to everybody. I think one of the things that the value of giving it to everybody, I think, is that they're going to keep it. Most of them aren't going to throw it away. But nothing in here is proprietary. Like, you're not going to put, because at your appointment, you're going to pull out specific marketing strategies. This is just a general overview. So don't get really specific in these. So let's say you go on the appointment, you give this to them and they list with someone else. You don't want this to be ammunition for the other listing agent, right? So I think it's a good question. Like, I would make it, if you look at this is general. It doesn't have a lot of meat. It's a little fluffy, but it's fluffy on purpose. Your listing appointment's going to have more meat versus your pre-listing is going to be more about your quality, your overall presence. So it feels different and it looks different. So I would recommend not. I would personally say give it to everybody, but make sure there's no proprietary stuff in there. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's great. Good stuff.
That I would add, maybe kind of on top, is a resume. Those of you that are younger on this call, there is what they call a resume. I don't even know if people do that anymore. But writing a resume, telling them where you worked before or putting your skill set on there, right? I worked in Nordstrom and customer service was a high priority for me. I was a sales trainer. I was one of the youngest managers in that entire company, right? I put all those things on there to show them that yes, I'm an expert in real estate, but my life skills, my other education, my other career paths that have led me to this moment have served me in a way that I can help better communicate my value proposition to the seller. So put a one-page resume together and make it, fluff it up, make it effective for a seller, but don't be ashamed to put where you've worked in the past, right? Also put some examples of marketing. So every time you market a listing, save a few postcards, save some property flyers, keep them in a drawer. Throw that in this pre-listing packet. Show them the quality of postcards that you mail out. Show them the quality of your open house flyers, right? We literally have a whole folder filled full. And I would say I usually kind of categorize them by a little bit upper end price range in a mid-range. So if I'm going to a $600,000 listing appointment, I'm not going to throw a $250 flyer in there, right? Vice versa, if I go to a $250 listing, I don't know that I'm going to show them the $600,000 house I listed. So keep a variety in there, but realize that humans need all their senses, meaning they need to touch, they need to see, they need to visually feel all that out. You just explaining that you do all this marketing is great. That's audio, but that's not touch. So start saving that. Those of you that have never listed a property, make it up. Find your mom's house, put her address on there. Put beautiful photos together, but show the quality of what you will do, right? There's nothing that you're not saying you sold it or you listed it. You're just saying this is a sample of what I will do to market your property, right? Be full of integrity there, but don't use that as a crutch or an excuse because I haven't sold a house if I don't have marketing. So make sure you're saving your marketing materials. Things like that. Realtor pledge, there's all kinds of different things. Even a cover letter thanking them for hey, I know we haven't met yet, but I know your time is valuable. Thank you so much for carving out time to even meet with me. I hope to answer any questions at our appointment soon, right? Doing anything like that to stand out. If you don't do any of that, if you're like, I don't have time to do this presentation, I don't have to drive it to somebody's house. Like, I just don't want to do that. I'm not that guy or girl. I can't put it in a bag, and I don't want to, do what Pam's doing with this cool box. Like, I get that, but then consider using technology to do it instead. It doesn't, it replaces it. So do a pre-listing video instead. And the cool thing is that you can have it prompted. You can record it on Zoom or a video app or whatever, have somebody help you do it. But walk them through a video presentation. And so basically it would be about a 3 to 4 minute, and I Googled one. There's literally samples online everywhere. A 3-minute opportunity meeting is what this one agent said, right? And it's a simple video. It doesn't say their name because you're going to use this over time, over and over again. But it basically says, I'm super excited to meet you and talk to you about the largest, biggest financial decision of your life. And I want you to know I take that seriously, and I want to be ready and willing and able to serve you in the best way possible. And we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Part of the reason why a video is effective is because they start to see your personality, your body language, your hands are moving, their tone of voice, right? One thing we realized that communication is words are only 7% of the communication. The rest of all that percentage is all body language and tonality. The beauty of a video listing pre-listing versus the one you dropped off at the front door is they get to feel your personality, get to feel that energy. You can hear me through the video right now, how excited I am, right? Can you imagine a seller feeling that energy so that when you show up their doorstep tomorrow at 3 o'clock, they feel like they already know you. They feel like they already have connected with you on a human-to-human relationship. So what I would challenge you is if you don't do a pre-listing physical hard copy at the front door, consider a pre-listing option. Consider something. And ultimately, the whole reason why you're doing it is to build, yes, that, purple cow moment. But it's ultimately, let's just be secret about it, it's about making your listing appointment shorter. Have you ever been on a listing appointment for 2 hours? And then you get in the car and you're exhausted and you're like, how in the hell, why I was there for 2 hours? And then I did one like that and I didn't get the listing. I'm like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life and I didn't even get the listing, right? So is there anything systematically, and then remember, systems first, technology, and then people, right, is the leverage piece of our business for a seller. What system could I put in place in a pre-listing packet or a pre-listing video that would allow me to leverage the opportunity of more listings, all right? So just think through all of those strategies as you go through.
Hey, Dave, wouldn't you just do both? Wouldn't you drop off the package and do a quick video?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think they kind of dovetail together. I think that would be great, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Because you could just reinforce the fact that, hey, by the way, I just dropped off the package this afternoon. Right. Please take a look at it. Call me if you've got any questions.
Right.
Super excited to see you. Look forward to just seeing you on Monday or whatever, Yep.
And those videos can be general, so you don't say their name and you don't say the day and time, so you can keep using that video. But you can say, yeah, hey, I just dropped off this pre-list and blah, 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 blah. If you have any questions, jot them down or even reply to this email. And I'm happy to answer the questions prior to our appointment. So the key with that dialogue when you get to the point, which we'll go through tomorrow, is it's about saving them time as well as you. Our sellers are just as busy as we are with their kids and their sports and their jobs. It's the highest form of respect is saving people time, right? That's a huge thing right now. So if you can go to a seller and only do a listing presentation, a listing appointment in 30 minutes, and they have the rest of the time, they're going to appreciate that value. I see a lot of us, we've all been coached and trained to do these big, what I call dog and pony shows with listing appointments. We don't need to do that. We can be much more efficient with systematically getting it on the front end. So that's why I'm passionate about, Michael doing a video and the drop-off option. And the videos, we've all kind of advanced more with video just over with COVID as well. So part of the preparation, as you know, is getting it priced right. And this is not a CMA class because there's a whole nother, and I'm sure you're educated daily with Susie and the team on CMAs. But one of the biggest things I tend to see is that even for new agents or experienced agents, we're not comparing the right houses to houses. We're comparing ranch styles to 2 stories when we're doing our comps. I come from a new construction background. My father's a builder. You can't compare those together. So first thing is really knowing your styles of houses, Cape Cods, 2 stories, things like that. You think that doesn't matter, but when you're trying to compare an apple and it's really an apple and an orange, your CMAs get really messed up pretty quick. So if you're newer in the business and you don't have a new construction background and you don't know the difference between, a craftsman versus a French provincial, I can send you, this is a link. It's a magazine. It's realtor.com has a magazine, and it's great. It gives you examples of like different styles. But the first thing I would tell you in a CMA is know the difference in your styles. The other thing is that I tend to see with CMAs is we put too many houses in our CMA. We don't need 12 or 15 houses in a CMA. You want 3 solid comps on your actives, 3 solid pending, 3 solid close. We don't need 35 houses. So what I'd be careful with is that the more you put in there and you're finding all these houses and they're all different shapes and sizes, you water down that comp and then your numbers become really mushy. So find really good high quality comps and go with 3 or 4. And then also price per square foot. That's not a real thing. Real estate agents and consumers think that's a number that you can use. That's almost impossible unless you're comparing a new construction floor plan and the same new construction floor plan, because there's hidden square footage in every single house, right? 2-story foyer versus the same 2-story but has a closed foyer. Well, now there's more space above that 2nd-story foyer, right? So be careful with that price per square foot pricing strategy. And again, we're not going much further into CMAs, but kind of know that you have to keep training. 16, 17, 20 years. I still go to RER's training. Still, 16 years in the business, I still go. I always pick up something new. And if you're a newer agent, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you what to do. You should be doing 1 CMA every single week. Pick a random house in MLS and see if you can get to that number. You should do it. And in my opinion, you should have a peer accountability partner and you should email it to them and say, how'd I do? Because your number 1 skill as a listing expert is a CMA. If you do all of the prospecting right, you get all the leads right, you get all the pre-listing packet right, and you screw up the CMA, you're still not going to take that listing. They're going to be like, he don't know what he's doing with the pricing, right? And that is such a moving target right now. It's hard to price houses in this market because the comps are moving so fast, right? So I would just challenge you, if you're really going to be that listing expert, you've got to keep that CMA skill sharp. And if you're newer, even if you're not, if you did 1 mock and a fake CMA every single week, by the time you get to the listing appointment, you'll be skilled. The last thing I'm going to end with this is a lot of times when we're focusing on listings, we're preparing ourselves for the no that we don't prepare ourselves for the yes. When we really prepare more for the no than we do the yes. What I mean by that is that when we're asking or lead generating for leads, we're so like, oh my gosh, what's the objection about that? What if they ask me a question I don't know? What, right? That's what we tend to focus on. But what about the one when they say yes? When they say yes, then you freak out and you're like, oh my God, I need to do a CMA. Now I got to do the listing paperwork. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. Like, so focus on the yes. Focus on when I take a listing, what systems do I have in place? Where's my paperwork? Do I understand what the listing contract says? Do I understand what my listing presentation is? Do I have my pre-listing stuff printed and ready to go packaged, right? That's preparing for the yes rather than strategically planning for the no. And I think sometimes when we coach and train individuals in our industry, we always coach them to the no. And I'll tell you that when the yes pops up, you need to be able to pull the trigger and be sharp and ready to go. Make sense? All right, well, the last thing is, what if the seller objects to pricing, right? First thing, option is you don't have to take the listing. I will tell you to be careful in this market because our comps are 60 to 90 days old and the market may be moving faster than our comps. I literally had an example last week. It was in Brookstone. They were like, I want to list for, I think it was 450. My client was like, I don't think it's worth 420. I think it's worth 425. I said, you should just take the listing. Take it at 450. They took it at 450 anyway. They did. They listened to the advice of their coach. It sold for 470. There was not one comp in there that would justify 470. But guess what? That's the appraiser's job to figure that out. And then you can either renegotiate, like the contract has the constructs of that. But if she was headstrong and was so hell-bent on saying, no, I'm the professional and it's only worth 425, rather than just flexing with the market, she wouldn't have even gotten the listing, honestly. They would have probably chosen another agent. We tend to write price reductions in the listing agreement. I'll tell you, if you ask a broker, it's not enforceable. It's not. But it's a strategic conversation that you're having with your seller. So what we write, or we coach most of our clients to write, is in the event, you have to write this down because it's not on your slide, in the event that we have 10 showings or 14 days on the market and there's no offers, we agree to reduce the price by 5,000, 10,000, right? We're putting in a plan in the event there's not, we receive 10 showings or 14 days on the market and there's no offers, right? We're tipping our hat saying, Mr. Seller, I'm gonna list it at this price, but then if we don't get what we think we're gonna get, we're gonna put a reduction in schedule in place. Now, if the seller agrees to that, and then you say, hey, we're at our 10th showing, we don't have any offers, hey, we need to do a price reduction, and that seller says, no, I don't wanna do that, I would just politely say, well, we wrote it in the contract, so we kind of had an agreement, so I'm curious why you've changed your mind. You can't enforce it, but I think it does tip your opportunity to have a more strategic conversation with your seller. I have coached a lot of listing agents where they're nervous to talk about price reductions, where they're hesitant to tell the seller, hey, I priced it wrong. You didn't price it wrong. You're interpreting the market in a moving, sliding scale, and it moved. And when it moved, you have to move with it or you get behind the market. So I would recommend writing some type of price reduction schedule or clause in there. Speak to your brokerage about kind of how that language needs to be written, but ultimately it's more of a psychological conversation with your seller to prompt it up. The other option is have it professionally appraised. I've had many properties that are unique, on big chunks of land, cabins, all kinds of fun stuff. I'm the first one to just say, I don't know, I can't comp this. This is so unique that it's so hard to do. So let's get it appraised. My business practice, and you can make it unique to your own, is that the seller paid for the appraisal, $450, $500, and then I would take that off at the end. I would reimburse them that at closing. I didn't pay for it up front because I wanted them to have skin in the game. But the beauty of it, if you have an appraised property, you can use that for marketing purposes. You can get a sign rider that says recently appraised, appraisal upon request, put it in attachments in the supplements, right? You could print it out, put it in a 3-ring binder and stick it on the countertop. So when you have real buyers in a unique property and they see comps and they see the appraisal, they have confidence in making an offer that's competitive rather than being horse trading a little bit. Right? So those are just some simple strategies if you're going through there. Anything else? Is there anything you guys are finding with the seller when they're objecting to pricing, or that strategies that you think that I've left out? No? All right. We're getting, so literally the last couple things, and we're done for the day, is that seller net sheets. Again, this should be a foundational thing everyone does, but for some reason it's becoming the purple cow. Hopefully you all know what a seller net sheet is. It tells them how much profit they're making at the end of the transaction, right? So this is an example one on the left. It's on an online software that a title company we use. So reach out to your title companies, reach out to lenders. There's spreadsheets examples of this, right? But it works it all the way down because it's not just commission that the seller's paying. There is some closing cost fees. There are some grantor tax and transfers. But the beautiful thing, and then you can see this, like this example, they're going to make $18,000 as profit. That's a conversation you can have with your seller that's more strategic. All right? I think we're probably getting Zoom fatigue after 2 hours. My brain goes to mush. So I'm just going to do a little bit of what to expect tomorrow. I'm going to go over the home study work that we're going to do, and then I want to just get a few minutes of ahas. So write down any aha moments that you want to plan to implement, your one thing. So tomorrow, what we're going to focus on is the physical listing presentation itself. We're going to give you some hacks and some strategies on how to deliver a really great listing presentation. We're also going to give you that listing presentation so you can customize it. We're going to give you some marketing ideas, some really creative listing marketing strategies. We're going to talk about negotiations and some tactics, especially in this crazy market. So we're going to go over negotiations. We're going to go over some closing systems. We're going to give you checklists so you can get some efficient systems in your closing process for sellers. And then the final thing that we're going to talk about tomorrow, which is probably the most important of the 2 days, is post-close. How do we attract more seller referrals, right? So we have that seller, they're happy, they go to the closing table. How do we get them to refer more of their buyer, more of their friends and family with sellers? Okay. So let me go real quick. So I would like for you guys to practice that CMA. And I know those of you that are been in the business a long time, like, yeah, I can do this in my sleep. But I would challenge you just to give it a shot, right? Those of you that are newer, again, I said, I think you need to be doing 1 CMA a week. Like, that's sharpening that blade. So what I'd like for you to do is do a CMA on this property. It's in Henrico, and you see the address 12224 Valley Brook Drive, and you can pull it through the tax record, but I want you to do a CMA, and I'd like for you can text me a photo of it or email it to me. I'll do a slide so you can get my contact information. But I'd like to see, and there's no pass or fail. Do it, do the best of your ability. Don't stress about it. But come up with what the price that you think it's valued at. They've fully renovated it, so if you're looking at old photos on Zillow, if you're looking at anything you find online, just kind of realize that they've given it a facelift at this point. They've done the paint, they've got granite, like they've done all the kind of trendy things that are happening. So it's top notch at this point. Let's just assume based on that, okay? So if you really think about it, there's 2 kind of homework items. It's do a CMA. Remember earlier in this afternoon, we talked about also being that local expert, right? Grabbing on page, what page is it? On page 3, kind of doing that local data expert, you know, going over those comp average sales price, days on market. So those 2 things are the key things that I would like for you guys to do. Anyone that does that is going to get access to the listing presentation and the pre-listing presentation. So there's a little carrot and stick to dangle there to get those customizable presentations for you guys, okay? So you guys have hung out with me for just over 2 hours. What's your final aha? What's your final takeaways of this first session before we head into tomorrow?
Hey, Drew, it's Michael here. I want to actually echo something that was said earlier about we're so busy right now. We're kind of like falling over ourselves just trying to keep up with the market. So, and this is really great stuff, but I think what's so important is time blocking, almost, to be able to like section off some time every week where it's just non-negotiable that you do this marketing stuff, because it does take time, and then just to go back into your database and farm a little bit more, because we're all running around taking phone calls and showing properties and doing all this stuff. But if we can just time block and just make it non-negotiable, like I'm almost going to turn off my phone and not, because I had like 10 phone calls during this last 2 hours. I mean, people are just calling me all the time. Just to, I'm just going to take a break and I'm going to do this stuff. And then it would make us stronger moving forward, for sure.
And I would challenge you, like, just do 1 hour. Like, don't feel like you have to do the whole thing, like block 6 hours to do this, right? It's little chunks at a time. This is about a sprint. Do each sprint. It's just keep doing them in small sections and small chunks. Right. And also the time blocking, one of the things that I teach another class on is real estate always, they're like, you lead generate from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. You do appointments from this. That's really hard in our business. So, and rather than it's, I call them buffers, where there's 4 main layers and you deal with new clients. So lead generation. The second one is like current clients, like people you have under contract or in your pipeline. And then you're also going to have marketing, and then you're going to have the admin, right? So those are the 4 layers. I call it NCAA. So it's new, current, advertising, and then admin. And so I would just say flow through that. Maybe your lead gen time's an hour, and then your new clients, maybe you don't have a lot of new clients. Maybe that's only going to be 30 minutes. But using those as layers rather than like physical, like 2 blocks, 2 hours here, 2 hours here. Because part of the freedom of real estate is flexibility. When you tell me that I have to lead generate for 2 hours, I'm going to politely tell you no, or I'm just going to not do it because I want to do what I want to do. So I love that because it's absolutely the truth. I would say we're sometimes indoctrinated to like, you have to do it at 3, you have to do it at 3:15, you got to do it 4. And I'm stubborn, and I'm like, don't tell me what to do. So try doing that new, current, advertising, and then admin, kind of get it in a flow is what I would coach you to a little bit to the next step there, okay?
Great, thanks.
All right, well, that is it for today. I will send you this recording as well as the PowerPoint presentation today after this, so shortly, within probably a half hour, and then use the same exact link for tomorrow, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And you guys all have my cell phone number and my email address throughout tonight. If you get stuck on anything, if you have any questions along anything, text me or email me. But I'll see you guys, same channel, same time tomorrow. Susie, is there anything you want to add, subtract from? Are we feeling good?
Feeling good. This was amazing.
It was amazing.
We got lots of good stuff tomorrow. So more meat, more content, and more ways to attract more listings. So without further ado, I'll let you guys go back to your business or hang out with your family, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a good one, and I'll again see you tomorrow, same time. Bye.
Thank you.